Welcome to the Ultimate Dental Podcast, the place where you can learn how to create a dental practice and a business life that you love. Listen in with Dr. David Moffet as he interviews successful entrepreneurs and successful business people and successful dentists as they share their business successes, their stories, and their breakthrough ideas, sharing pearls of wisdom that you can take back to your practice and implement immediately so that you can have that great practice with more patients, higher profits, and less stress. This is the podcast where great dental practices meet with successful business processes. Thanks for tuning in to the Ultimate Dental Podcast, the podcast where thought leaders, industry experts, and thriving practice owners reveal their very best tips, tools, and strategies that will help you grow your dental practice faster. Now, here's your host, Dr. David Moffet.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. David Moffet. I'm here in Burrowang in New South Wales. It's Friday morning, 10:30, and I have the pleasure of talking with Brenda McNulty, who's in Castle Rock in Colorado, 30 minutes outside of Denver. And Brenda and I have been good friends for over 10 years. And it's a pleasure to have Brenda as a guest on the Ultimate Dental Podcast. Brenda, good afternoon to you. It's Thursday afternoon over there. So thanks for joining me on the Ultimate Dental Podcast.
Well, my pleasure. I'm very excited to spend some time with you. It's been a while, so this is going to be a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to catch up, and I think I was inspired to contact you for the podcast because you've just published a book, and I've ordered the book. It's on its way from Amazon. So
I'm so flattered. Thank you.
Well, I thought I've got to get my hands on it, but Amazon told me it was a book on dental humor. Is that correct?
It is. It's definitely not educational. It is more crazy things that have happened either traveling in the dental office with team members during interviews. It's a collection of all the weird things that might have happened to you as a dental consultant or as a traveler. So it's fun. It was a great book to write, going back and reminiscing over all of the crazy antics that have happened.
Oh my goodness! It's I'm just running through my head through some of my travel experiences, and coming from Australia to do events in the United States, even, and how much could I dig up if I could remember all those stories. But I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on it. And congratulations on making dentistry lighthearted for somebody. Dentistry as a profession tends to be used as a laughing stock in movies.
Yes.
We go to the Little Shop of Horrors and even back to Marathon Man. And I remember a movie with Billy Crystal where his ex-wife was dating a dentist, and the dentist never appeared in the movie, but there was a line that he said to his ex-wife. He said, "Does he play the same music at home as he plays in his office?"
So we can laugh. We can laugh about the profession. And there are some really uplifting stories in there too. For instance, there was a doctor who felt really guilty over sending statements to his patients. So he didn't for the longest time. And I started working with him and found, probably over $500,000 worth of outstanding patient balances. And we got together, we printed out all the statements and we prayed over them. All of us did in the office, and we sent out the statements. We prayed for our sanity once the phone started ringing, as well, that the people that received the statements would have enough money to be able to pay their bill. And amazing things happened, like the patients were calling us to pay and apologizing for the fact that they were completely unaware that they had a balance. who does that? So there are some uplifting stories in that book as well.
Well, that's a really a great business lesson there, Brenda, because dental students don't graduate with with zero business knowledge, and so they are scared to talk money to patients when they become doctors or owners or even associate dentists, and then when running a practice, they're scared to instruct their team. You've got to collect money, and historically, before credit cards, people used to get an account, yeah, as we used to at the gas station, at the stationer. You know, I'll just put it on my account. I'll pay it monthly when I feel like it. And so the dental bill always went to the bottom of the pile, even if it did get sent and resent. But it certainly doesn't help not being able to know how to speak money to your customers and your potential customers, and even dentists. It's funny because we teach this all the time. You teach it as well, of course. You know, dentists will soften the blow and cut the price even before somebody has asked, "What's the price?" They'll have discounted it in their own mind, and it's a skill. It's a skill that people need to learn because it's not something that you can or cannot do, like running a 100 meters in under 10 seconds. That's something nearly the whole world cannot do. But nearly the whole world can ask for money and learn how to ask for money and look people in the eye. I learned it off, I think, Tom Hopkins, about, being able to, and Dick Barnes, being able to tell people the price. I always tell my clients, I say, you've got to look them in the eye. And if you can't look them in the eye, I said, pretend they're from India and look them in the bindi, and that's just because they don't know that you're not looking them in the eye. Just look there and just this is the price. And but yeah, that's scary because that office that you're talking about is for that one. There's probably 1,000, if there's not 10,000 offices doing exactly the same thing,
Yes.
hoping that people will actually come and pay.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great book to write. And then, of course, as soon as you send it to publish, you remember 10, 15 other stories that you should have included in the book. So I'm like, maybe there'll be a smile on again in the future. But I really enjoyed writing the book, and I'm excited. It just published last week. And it is a #1 bestseller on Amazon in the doctors and humor section, but still #1 new release.
Well, congratulations! And you can't. They can't take a #1 off you. Once you've been a #1 and you've got the evidence from Amazon, you're an Amazon bestseller. Congratulations!
There we go. I'll take it. I'll take it every day.
My book, which is coming up to 10 years this year, I think in April or May, it's 10 years. It was #1 in dental office practice, which was 700 titles, which was a reasonable size. It was #1 for, at some stage, 37 months in a row. So
Wow.
in each of those 37 months, it hit #1. For some of those months, it was #1 like all the time. But towards the end, it was kind of like, choom, choom. And that was really weird for me because it was really like your book. I wrote mine as a book of passion. People say, well, I expected it to be more like how to do this, how to do that. I said, well, it's in there. I said, but it's more autobiographical. It's like if you go through it with a highlighter and a marker, and you'll find the points. You'll say, well, that chapter had about 90 points in it. Other chapters 60, but it's not like step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got to work it out for yourself. So it's more narrative rather than explanatory, which doesn't help the dentists who are the C-type people who like the step 1, open the box, or step 2, take the wrapper off. Step 2, open the box. Step 2, take the contents out. All that sort of stuff. But anyway, I'm glad you've done it, and it's an achievement because again, it puts you in that rare section of the population and that rare section of the dental population who have written a book, and so it now makes you an authority. And it's nice also to have something that is humorous along the way, because a lot of people are terrified of dentists. And so, when dentists do display a bit of humor and self-deprecation, their patients identify with them better, I found,
Agreed. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, there's no point faking aloofness as a dentist. People don't like you as a dentist to start off with, so no point really being up on a pedestal too high. If you can bring yourself down and not laugh about, oh gee, I pulled the wrong tooth, but laugh about things in your life that are funny, like you and I were talking about cleaning the house before we started the interview. It's funny, but anyway, when you and I first met, we actually met at a dental course in San Diego for dental speakers, and so that was an interesting way for our worlds to come together. But what was really I think brought us together really well was 6 months after that I had a shoulder replacement, and you sent me a get well card, and I thought that was again something that in dentistry and in business, sending cards, sending thank you cards is something that people don't do, and it's so easy to stand out from your competitors when you do put a card in the mail, because people don't get things in the mail. Now we only get parcels in the mail. The only reason we go to the post office is to pick up our Amazon. And so a card in the mail was really good. And then I think, again, we met face-to-face a few months after that, because I was visiting a client in Denver as well, and caught up. And, our paths have crossed in a number of ways. But the exciting thing about interviewing you now is that you are now a business owner in your own right, whereas before you were working for consultancy companies, and now you've been out as your own LLC for 12 months now. So tell us how that's going.
Yeah, so in January of last year, I took the leap and started my own company, and it really wasn't even my thought. It was interesting. I was at a meeting probably 8, 9 months earlier, and I was with a whole bunch of leadership teams from DSOs. And they said, so we have a question for you. Could we each hire you for a fraction of your time? And I said, that's very interesting. Tell me more. And they said, well, we know that you know the dental field. We know that you know how to train. We have trainers. We have people that can do that too. But what we're struggling with is an implementation plan and holding our teams accountable for that implementation plan. So we're thinking that if we each had you for a fraction of your time, then maybe we could get that implementation and accountability going. And I thought that's a very interesting concept. So a few of them and I kept in touch, and I'm like, okay, I think I am going to start my own company. Help me with this. Tell me what it is that you're lacking, that you need help with, and what would be the best type of support. So I designed the company with them in mind, and in January I ran with it and decided that we're going to have on-site visits, but a lot of Zoom meetings in between those visits. Every time we do a training, no matter what we do a training on, we create an implementation plan. How are we going to take this information and how are we going to do it? And then, okay, great. Now we know how we're going to do it. We know who's going to do what when. What happens if we don't? What's this accountability plan? How are we going to make sure that it's being done? And it's been working out wonderfully. I have some amazing clients all across the country. I feel like I bebop into different time zones, which is, sometimes a struggle, but I enjoy being in front of these teams, telling them what's worked and what hasn't worked, with the hundreds of dental offices that I've worked with. And now I have over 15 years of consulting experience under my belt. So this works out really well to be able to say, here's some ideas. Let's figure out what we're going to do for you. Let's figure out who's going to do what. And then that accountability piece. So I love it. But the main reason why I love it is because it's a Christian-based company. And we created it as a way to generate an income to give back. So we support children all over the world, mainly looking at school tuitions. And that's been our focus, is to help people who struggle with paying their school tuitions, not college. We're talking the younger kids. There's a few that are in college that we also support, but it's a way for my husband and I to leave this world a better place than how we found it. So that was the purpose, and I love it.
Well, it's always lovely to have a purpose, and I like the fact that you have this benevolent attitude, and education is really important. I think, if I think of my own education, because when I turned up for my first day at dental school, I lived further away from the university than anybody else in Sydney. Like everybody else who lived further away out of Sydney was staying in the colleges. So for people travelling to suburban parts of Sydney, I had the furthest to travel, and I also didn't go to private schools. My parents both came from working class. My mother was told to leave school by her father at age 16. He said, girls don't go to the leaving certificate. They leave at 16 and they go and get a job. And her brother, who wasn't as smart, got to finish his schooling. So it was something then for me to then make my parents proud to go to university, and I'm very grateful. But I think that getting that, being incentivized as well, which is what these children that you're helping, I think they will grasp that more than sometimes. And I found this at university, the people who'd come from private school, they kind of didn't turn up for the classes at uni, and they fell off. They didn't end up being dentists. So I was kind of proud of that. But I love that. But the other thing that I love about that story, there's two things. In the beginning, that the problem appeared in front of you, and it was people actually came to you and said, we want you to do this, and you then said, well, I can do that. So that's great. So you actually had an audience already, rather than saying, I've got an idea and let's see if I can find clients. The clients came to you and said, here's an idea. Would you work in this? And so that was great. But again, you have to deliver, and you've shown this, that it's fine to just give people the how, but if or give them the what, but if you don't give them the how and then don't get them who's going to implement this, and then keeping those people accountable, it's the accountability that is where the results come from. There's plenty of people out there, and you've seen them at dental conferences, take pages of notes, get back home, put the notes on the bookshelf with all the other notes, and then get straight back to doing what they've always done and never look at those notes ever again.
Myself included. I've done that a time or two. And as well as I do, as being a speaker is so much easier than actually being a coach, because I can get up and say, hey, this is what you should do. Okay, bye guys. Have fun. See you later. And I've given them lots of tidbits of information. But now, as their coach, or the fractional training officer is my official title, they're getting me for a fraction of my time. And I have to make sure that all of their plans come to fruition. So it's a lot harder to do that than a speaking engagement, but it's also a lot more rewarding, because if you have a room full of 200 people that you're speaking to, you never know, did they do it? And were they successful? But now that I'm following up with all of the clients, I know that it's working. And it's like having a recipe for a delicious meal and being able to taste it at the end and have it turn out perfect. It's great.
It is a great feeling when you've worked with someone for a year and you've seen them make some results, and significant results, and you'll be seeing that. But then there'll be the time, and you may have even seen it already, where you start talking to them in the now, and you say, and they go, "Oh, we didn't implement that thing that you told us 12 months ago," and you go, "Well, that's why you've got this, and this problem still. I assume that you just did that." And that's kind of scary. And then when they go back and fix it, it's kind of like all the dominoes fall away, all the other problems in front of them fall away, because the original problem is something that they should have addressed. And so you know it as a coach, but it still amazes me. You know, they come to you with a problem. You say, "Well, all right, let's unpack this problem," and you find out, no, the problem is it's like the guy on the video with he's got the bucket and he's pushing the water back over the iron fence, and it's coming through underneath, and that's what they're doing. Whereas the problem is the water up the road. You've got to find out where's that water up the road come from into your place. Yeah, and they don't do that.
Absolutely.
So
My favorite phrase
accountability.
is help me understand.
Mm,
Help me understand where we went wrong. Help me understand where I can help you implement this. Help me understand, is this the problem that we want to solve right now? Because maybe they didn't implement because they didn't feel it was important and something else is more important. So help me understand and let's move on from there. Because you're absolutely right. It's like the guy that gets a gym membership and never goes to the gym and is expecting to lose weight.
yeah. I have a friend who's 75, and he's always in gyms all around the world while he's speaking and taking pictures. And he's taking pictures from gyms in January at 10 o'clock at night. He's been to dinner with someone, and then he's gone back to and had a workout after the dinner, because he says, "I've got this fitness program." And he says, "Where are all those people with the New Year's resolution? They've given up and they've quit because they haven't done the action, and no one's kept them accountable for it." And that's the scary part. So yeah, accountability is the issue. People can, I guess, feel more intelligent. Somebody was telling me yesterday about even books, and you'll know this. Plenty of people buy books and never read them, and but at least they feel they are smarter because they own the book and they can pick it up and maybe open it up and read a bit off the cover. But it is one step. But owning a gym membership without going to the gym. But it's, again, some people can go to the gym and not need a personal trainer, and other people need a personal trainer to keep them on track.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly with that statement.
But the rewards are amazing and the simplicity of it. And the other side of the coin, Brenda, is that you will meet people who you spoke to 5 years ago, and if they allow you to listen to their story, nothing's changed because they haven't done any implementation or had an accountability for what they should have achieved. And yet you have had clients that have come along in the meantime who have achieved more because they've done the work.
And don't you just love those aha moments where you say something, it might even be one sentence, where you say, have you ever thought about this? And they're like, that's brilliant. Why are we not doing that? And just instantly, sometimes you make such a huge impact on a practice by either taking something away that they're doing that is pointless or saying, what about this? And it all makes sense. I go back to my room at the hotel and I'm like, thank you, Lord, for giving me this insight to be able to share with them that they're going to be successful over this information that they just learned. But boy, was today a good day. Because not every day is a good day. But when you get one of those really good days, it is so precious. You just got to give praise for that. Love it.
Yeah, I think, and you'll find this too in your own business. I think as long as people identify with what you're doing and don't try to dilute it or concentrate other things in, is sometimes, you're better to just work with one person. And if you're the right person, you can get the consistency of result. But sometimes I'll add stuff. And a classic example that I've seen is the morning huddle that's been, let's add this information, this information. I said, this is not huddle information. This is weekly meeting information, and you're putting it into daily information. This, daily huddle should be energetic. The best daily huddle I remember was the huddle on Hill Street Blues. At the end
Yeah.
of, and at the
I
end of it,
remember that. I
yeah.
definitely remember that.
Yeah, it was, and long before I knew what a dental huddle was, I'd watch that and I go, wow, he really inspires that team to be a team, just with his message of um, of hope and understanding at the end of that huddle. And I thought, funny police having huddles, but anyway, cool. Don't worry about the book and all those things. Again, you said you remembered things that you could have put in and you're starting to gather. But it's like speaking. Somebody once told me there's three speeches. There's the one that you write, the one that you give, and the one that you wanted to give. And really, the audience only knows the one that you give. And so just work with that. And as long as you appear smarter than the audience and they feel that you're smarter than them, even if it's only marginally, you've succeeded, and the next stuff comes along next time.
That's right. No, and it's interesting how you start to remember things. Things that at the time I either thought was devastating or things that were incredibly funny that I completely forgot about and then remember now. And it's fun to look back on things. And my husband, who was with me for probably 90% of the stories in the book, he hadn't heard all of those stories. So he might have heard little snippets here and there. So he enjoyed reading the book. And I was like, I'm so happy. I mean, I had to impress you. That's really who I needed to impress. My partner, my husband, my best friend, and he was happy. So that makes me happy. Of course, if David Moffet agrees that this is a good book, that will make me even happier, Doctor, for sure.
Of course, and so one of the keys that I used when my book came out and people said, "Oh, I really enjoyed your book," was again learning to ask, just like learning to ask for money, and that was to say, "Can you leave me a 5-star review on Amazon?" And not can you leave me a review, but can you leave me a 5-star review, and I'll send you the link. Because often they'd even do it just in an email. Here's the link to place to go, and so people said, yeah, fine, and so that's what helped me to keep that number one ranking for 37 months was
Beautiful.
collecting, yeah, and so again, I used that success in marketing my book 10 years ago to teach every dental practice to say, when somebody says, "Oh, that was really, really great today. Can you leave us a 5-star Google review?" And now it's as easy as scanning a QR code to do it. It's not as complex as it was 10 years ago. But you've got to ask for that 5-star review. Really, really
Great
important.
advice.
Yeah,
Great
well,
advice.
if you don't ask, you don't get.
That's
And
true. If you
if
don't
you
ask,
don't
the
ask,
answer's always no.
the answer's always no if you don't ask. So you may as well ask. And so working out how to ask quickly and succinctly is really, really important. And also there's consensus. Again, one of the things that we do when we're talking to clients about how do they get patients to change from, say, "Oh, can you ring me for my 6-month reminder," as opposed to booking it now? And we say, well, now all of our patients are doing it this way, or the majority of our patients are doing it this way. So they go, I don't want to be the odd one out.
That's
And so,
right.
again, create that consensus before they object. Yeah, really, really important. So, Brenda, you in your bio, you told me, and it's actually, I'm looking at your bio up here now, 30 years of experience in the dental field. That's a long time, and you've done a lot of work. I guess you've found your true home now with this business as well.
Yeah, I did. I never imagined that I would be in dentistry. My husband was a Marine, and he got stationed at Camp Pendleton, and they deployed too many troops, and they ran out of dental assistants. So they offered a dental training program to the wives. And I had not had very good dental experiences, but I am a sucker for volunteering. And when I saw that my country needed me, I decided that I would sign up. So they put me through the Naval Dental Training Program, and I had to volunteer something like 400, 500 hours or something to pay for the training, and became a dental assistant for the United States Navy. And I was a really, really good dental assistant for the United States Navy. But when you go out in civilian life and I have to place a composite filling that I've never done, or sit down and do a crown prep and make a temporary that I had never done, I was terrible. I had never done my own sterilization or anything. And I was such a bad dental assistant that I would tell the doctor, I'll be in there in a minute. And he would go, no, 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 that's okay. I got it. And that was before you had these automatic suctions and everything else. That I was worse than nothing as a dental assistant. And I found my calling on the business side and loved it, learned insurance inside and out. And I would start a job and I would say, hey, what do you hate doing? And they would tell me, and I'm like, I'm going to be the best of the best at that so you don't have to do it. And that's really how I started on the business side of dentistry, and grew from there, became like a regional manager for a DSO, and started this is how old I am, started one of the very first chartless dental offices there was on a software, and have been seeing the technology grow and everything, and I grew right along with it. And it's ever changing and it's ever challenging, but it's very fulfilling. And I look back at my younger self. Gosh, I was 20 years old, 22 years old, way back in the day when I started off as a dental assistant. I would have never guessed I was still in dental at this age, but I grew up in it. So here we are, loving every minute of it, every challenge that I've had, and realizing that this was my calling all along.
That's you reminded me. One of the best dental assistants that I had started with me through an agency, and for 2 years she worked through the agency as doing part-time work only, relief work, and then she worked for me part-time. Then she worked for me full-time for another 2 years and another 2 years after that. But she was a dental assistant in the Navy as well, in the Australian Navy. And one of the comments that she was very respectful of rank, and she kept reminding me. She said, David, she said, I understand the importance of rank and respect. And in the younger population now, I think that's gone out the window. I find when I listen to phone calls, when I hear a 19-year-old girl answering the phone calling a man in his 60s, by his first name without him allowing that, I find that disrespectful. And I think that the importance of knowing your place and knowing who can say what in a dental practice and in society even is really, really important. In fact, just came to mind that I worked as an associate for 3 years before I bought my practice, and he was a Navy dentist. And he told this story where he made a full-on fool for a sailor, and at the wax try-in stage, he put them in the sailor's mouth, and of course this guy had no teeth, and so all of a sudden he put these teeth in, and the guy goes, he says, "Oh mate," he said, "these look beautiful," and so my boss was at that time just about to take the wax out and send it off to get it made, and he felt a hand on his shoulder, and it was his commanding officer said, "Let him go." And so the patient left with the wax dentures in his mouth, and 20 minutes later he's come back in tears because he's gone and had a cup of coffee and the wax has melted and the teeth are all coming out. And his commanding officer just said to him, he said, "Son," he said, "nobody calls an officer mate in the Navy. He's got to learn respect of title." And I thought, very, very important point. And it was obviously a difficult lesson because everybody had to remake the darn thing, but it was a lesson that you've earned this title for what you've done because you've been at university and you're seen as somebody who's an expert. And so it's interesting. I always used to tell my patients to call me David, but if they still chose to call me Dr. Moffet, that was their choice. I was happy with that. But I'd like to get that familiarity. But it's permission given. Same with older patients. If I called them Mrs. So and so until they said no, call me by my first name, even though they were my mother's age.
And now you're getting bro. What's up, bro? And sweetie and honey, and yeah, it's a different ball game now with a different generation, and even the Navy that I was trained in is not the same Navy as it is now, because now they allow for more restorative work and for implants and things like that. But I can remember the doctor calling out, number 13 WFT, and I'm like, WFT? It stood for whole frickin' tooth. So that was an amalgam that covered every surface of the tooth, and boy, were they gorgeous. Like, they look like stainless steel crowns. They would polish them up and make them all pretty. But when we went out into the civilian life, that was completely unheard of, because how could we possibly spend an hour and a half creating this beautiful WFT for $80? Instead, we've got to do a crown. So it is a whole different ball game now. And like you said, with the different generations, it is definitely challenging working through what's normal and what's not. When you work for the United States Navy, there are no sick days. You don't call in. And now it can be like, I'm not feeling it today, and calling in sick to work. So
yes,
challenges all the way around. But the training that I received, when I was with you at that course, everything has built us up to where we are now, right? And so it's wonderful. We have learned those things, and now we get to share that with others.
Well, I think with that that WFT diagnosis is that, again, the role of the Navy dentist is to just restore the tooth for as long as that person's actually going to be in the Navy. And whereas in private practice, it's kind of like, well, if I just do one of those, in 3 years they're back, and it's going to be worse than and I'm going to have to do a crown, and it's going to be less tooth than if I do it now. So it's going to cost more than if I do it now. So I may as well do it now. And it took me a while to learned that in my own head, that although I was going to be charging them more than this thing looked really great, but it only looked great until they walked out the door and started eating on it, and then what tiny little bit of their tooth was left would be vulnerable. And Brenda, you're smarter now after 30 years in the business than you were after 25, than you were after 20, than you were after 15. And it's the same for dentists as well. Although they think they know everything when they graduate, and they think they know everything after 10 years, in another 10 years' time, they say, well, I wasn't really that smart 10 years ago. And then in another 10 years' time, they go, I'm still not as smart as I can be. You learn that there's always lessons. Like even the implant. The implant was originally thought of as to be the ultimate permanent restoration, but they still fail for the same reason that teeth fail. Bugs get in there. They don't like cigarette smoke because that causes bugs to get down there. It's all that sort of stuff, and then even putting crowns on them. The screws are vulnerable. The crown is still vulnerable. The angulations are still vulnerable. It's I once had a lecturer tell me that everything in restorative dentistry was a pre-prosthetic procedure, meaning for false teeth, not fixed false teeth, but for dentures. Yeah. And he's kind of right. Sometimes everything can fail. But again, our advice is like the gym membership, and like Dan Kennedy used to say, he said his job was just to get them to buy the stuff. He said, but he couldn't get them to open the shrink wrap and listen to the CDs and read the manuals, and so that's the hard part. And you, as a coach, and me, the same thing. It takes a certain type of person to do that, because you cop. Well, why isn't your stuff working? Well, it's not working because you're not doing it.
That's right. That's right.
Let me tell you where the answer is. I often tell this to my clients. Let me tell you where the answer is. In your bathroom. They go, what? I said, go into your bathroom. I'm sure you've got a mirror there. Look in the mirror, and there's the answer to why you're not achieving the results.
Yeah.
It's you.
True.
You've got to do the work. Yeah. So hats off to you on getting out there and building this. So tell me, you walked into a business 12 months ago that you basically had a full book of clients. Is that correct? Your time?
No. They helped me develop the company, but at that time, they had hired some trainers and everything too. So not all of them became clients. So I did have to do some marketing. But since I had been a consultant in the past, when people had heard that I left my current company that I was employed with, people started coming out of the woodwork that I was a consultant for years ago, saying, I hear you're consulting now. Would you be interested in consulting for me? So many of my clients that I have are previous clients that I had when I was consulting, or they're people that had heard me speak and wanted to become a client. But I'm very small because I don't want to work too hard. Everybody gets me for a fraction of my time, and I don't want that time to be 60 hours a week. So I have very few clients that see me a lot and I interact with a lot. And that was the design, to work less and still be able to create enough income that I can give back. And if I need to give back more, I'll work harder and accept more clients. But right now I have my client base. I have a list of people that are waiting in the wings in case a client goes through their program and decides, okay, well, now we can do it on our own. That's fantastic. That's the design, is once we train you on this material that you can fly on your own, and then I can accept another client. So that's been working out great. I love it.
Well, that's part of that John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, to create somebody who can then become a leader and then train their own people. And,
Exactly.
I know my first client did that very successfully. She after 2 years, I felt like I'm ready for you to go when you're ready to go, because she implemented everything that I asked her to do without question and got results for all that as well. Have you ever come across this though, Brenda? And you probably have. Somebody who wants you to come in and tell them everything that's wrong, and then they go, "Thanks, we're going to do it ourselves now." It's kind of. Have you ever
So,
had
yeah,
that?
I have come across that. In the very beginning, I offered a pretty diverse group of services. And one of those services was I will come in, I will spend 2 days, I will do an evaluation and tell you what my strategic plan for training would be. You can take it or you can leave it. It's completely up to you. And I did have a client that said, that's all I needed to know is what needed to be fixed. So thank you for recognizing that. I'll take it from here. And I'm like, that's fantastic. If you have the information, I'll even provide you with the information that you can train on. I have no problem doing that. And if you need help, I'll be here. I'll be here. And most of the time they call back. I mean, over all the years of consulting, they say, it looked a lot easier when you were telling us how to do it than it actually is. We're going to need some more support. Or I've had one client that said, I think I can do this. I'm going to cut back my hours. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I'm like, let me support you in any way I possibly can. And they were able to do it. So and I'm happy either way, because there's a lot of personalities out there that really need the support, and there's others that just need the material. And whichever they're going to need to be successful, good on you, because we need more successful dentists out there.
Yeah, we do need we do need more successful dentists, and we do need dentists to focus on the fact, and in Australia it's more restrictive than in the United States, that there's only some jobs in the dental practice that dentists are allowed to do. And I know in the US it's cutting teeth and tissue, but there's a lot of things that a dental assistant can do in the United States, like pack composite and
Sure.
put on matrix bands and temporary crowns. They're not allowed to do that down here. And so educating dentists to say, well, this is your hourly rate for working as a dentist. And then when you start talking, you're not getting your hourly rate, and you're actually doing somebody who can talk as well as you, because you can train them to talk so you're actually doing their job, they're doing nothing, and who's drilling the teeth while you're doing their job. And so it's the old story about mowing the lawn. People say, oh, I love mowing the lawn because it's therapeutic, but you can pay the kid next door $20. You can pay a really good lawnmower $50 to mow your lawn, and it might take 2 hours, and in that 2 hours you could have worked on your business, or you could have done something more therapeutic than mowing the lawn in the hot sun. And so again, it's getting people to value their time. But we see it. Dentist comes out with the patient and then stands behind the desk and points at the screen while there's somebody there who knows what's in that book, who could just do the job. All he needs to say is, I need a 30-minute appointment for Mary for this, next
You
week
can only
sometime.
help who wants to be helped, right? So that's the way I look at it. And
Yeah,
you can
sometimes.
help those who want to be helped. But one thing that I did from the very beginning of my company, from the very beginning, is if in any of these dental groups somebody says, I need an insurance verification form, I'm like, here you go. Does anybody have a good script on how to call a patient and get them back in for their recare? Absolutely. Here you go. And I've never charged for giving away that information because I figured if you can take this information and run with it, that's fantastic. If you can't, I'm here. I can come in and train on it. So I've always done that. And that has really helped too, because some of the clients I have are people that I gave free information to that have said, that was brilliant. I need help in these other areas too. So I share. If any of these listeners go, hey, do you have blank? I probably do. It's been 30 years here. So I got a collection on my hard drive. It's quite funny. I look back at these things that we created years and years ago, but some of them are coming back around. So, hey, why not? I'll share it.
I think the principles of good business are, they're sacrosanct. They're always there. Was it Ziegler or Rohn who just said there are no new fundamentals? The fundamentals of business are those processes, and it comes down to sure that we can do things electronically, but sometimes electronically is not as good as face to face. And the spoken word is sometimes much better. The heard word is much better than. And this one was a killer for me. I visited an office, and the receptionist would say to the client, the patient would find their own way out to the front desk, and then the receptionist would say, "I just need to wait and see what the computer says." And nearly every second patient left without an appointment because there was no personal handover. And so, it's like children. If you tell children something once, they might do something. Tell them twice, tell them three times, there's more chance of getting it done because the message sinks in the second or third time. So everything has to be, if you can choreograph that communication into your business as opposed to, and even having somebody, I'm still a big believer, have somebody come into the treatment room and announce to the doctor that the next patient is here for her appointment, because there's an opportunity of just the patient in the chair hearing people being nice to each other. The second thing is that the doctor can say, "Oh, ask her how her holiday was." So again, it's kind of like, oh, they're actually talking about her. And the other one which we picked up was, and I thanked her for coming in early. So they say, "Mrs. Smith's here for her appointment, and I thanked her for being early." And so this patient goes, "Oh, they like you to come early." And so, and we had to tweak that because the receptionist was coming in and saying, and she knows she's early. And it's kind of like, you're early. Like, it's like, you're stupid. And we said, now, can we say that better? So we learned that sometimes there's always things that need to be said in a different way. We might think it's the same thing, but it's just the inflection or the words that can change that whole delivery. And that's what gets people coming back, is how they're made to feel and how they're valued as being more than just a tooth and a credit card or a tooth and an insurance company.
Dr. David, there was a funny story. It's not in my book, but my dentist was also one of my clients, and we talked about how everything is rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns. So if you're looking at radiographs, these are the best radiographs I've ever seen. Great job, Stacy. These are beautiful. I do need to see this one tooth from a different angle, right? So they know they screwed up. They need to take another one. Well, I was in the department store one day, right near my doctor's office, and there was a woman in front of me, and she was holding her cheek. She was in pain. She was having a toothache. And the person in front of me said, "Are you okay, ma'am?" And she goes, "Oh, I've had this killer toothache for weeks. I really need to find a good dentist." And as I'm digging through my purse, trying to find the card for my dentist, I'm thinking, do I have it in there? The patient in front of me says, "You should see my dentist because she's right down the road and she takes the best radiographs of anyone. She can make them big. She can make them smaller. She can make them change colors. It's like amazing the work that she can do in this dental office. And I'm sitting there going, is she going to say it? Say the words. Say the words. And she said the name of the dental office where I had trained them to talk about how everything is wonderful and rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns. And I couldn't wait to get to my car to call that doctor and say, it works. She didn't remember the shot that you gave her. She didn't remember the fact that you have a laser. She remembered the fact that you said these are the best radiographs and showed her how they get bigger and smaller and change color. And that just is going to get you a new patient.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Totally the verbal skills, everything that you've been teaching for years and years and years, it makes sense. It all makes sense.
Yeah. People leave dental practices because they feel that they are either being ignored or taken for granted or unappreciated more than about the quality of the dentistry. It's the quality of the relationship. And so it's really important to work on the people skills. And I always like to train dentists to, if you asked every patient, do you want me to do this procedure in 90 minutes or 60 minutes? Every patient's going to say 60 minutes, but they never ask, is it cheaper if you do it in 60? They never ask that. They want you to be as efficient as possible. But that 30 minutes you save, or if it's 10 minutes you save, invest that 10 minutes in conversation, because that'll be a better investment than actually seeing another patient. Rather than rushing people production line, just invest it in conversation. What do you got planned for the weekend? They come in a tracksuit. You say, what sort of fitness do you do on the weekend? What do you, sometimes we wear tracksuits because it's a lazy choice. But usually if somebody comes in a high vis, you go, oh, where do you work? Let's talk about them all the time again. Brenda, it's been great to catch up. Thank you very much. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Okay, well, let's remember FACTS is FACTS. Let's just remember that first, because my email is brenda@dsofacts.net. You can also find me on the internet at www.dsofacts.net. And I'm on all over social media. Just look up Brenda McNulty and I'm sure you'll see my face there. And please connect with me. I love connecting with people, just like you, Dr. David. We love to connect and meet people, and I'd love to tell you a little bit more about what I do.
And of course, they can get your book from Amazon as
yes, they
I
can.
will. There it is. Smile on. I've got I know there's a parcel down at my post office that I can go and get this afternoon. I've got my fingers crossed that it's your book.
I haven't even received my book. This one says not for resale on it already. This was my author copy, but I ordered some for myself and they haven't even come in yet. So, boy, if you get my book down in Australia before I receive it, that'll be something, won't it?
Well, when I get it, I'll post a picture on social media. So wouldn't that be that'd be hysterical if it got to Australia before it got to Denver. But Brenda, thanks very much again for being a guest on the Ultimate Dental Podcast. It's been great chatting with you.
It has been, and thank you so much for the invitation. I always love to connect with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of our dental community and joining us each week on this incredible journey. If you found value in today's episode and you don't want to miss out on future episodes packed with expert insights and actionable strategies, here's how you can stay connected with us. Firstly, hit that subscribe button. Whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or watching on our website, subscribing ensures you'll never miss an episode. Secondly, share the love. If you know a fellow dentist or colleague who could benefit from the wisdom and knowledge that we share here, please share our podcast with them. Also, please share the podcast on your socials by simply clicking on the social icons wherever you view or listen to this podcast. Together, we can all do our bit to elevate the dental profession. And finally, stay engaged with us. We love hearing from you. Your questions, comments, and feedback fuel our mission to provide the best content for your professional growth, your personal growth, and for your practice growth. Remember, your journey to creating a dental practice and a business life that you love is our mission, and we're excited to be your trusted guide along the way. Thank you for being a part of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. Until next time, keep smiling, keep striving, and keep on tuning in to the Ultimate Dental Podcast.